In today's video, let's take a character from Mixamo and pose him just like this in this cool kung fu pose and render him in Arnold. So let's see what would that require, and just as a fun 3D exercise. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in Mixamo, and just like in my previous tutorial, I really like this monk guy. I think he's really cool. And I did download a reference from just randomly searching Google Images of a cool monk pose. So the challenge becomes, how do we take a Mixamo character, pose him in this cool pose using this reference, and then render him in Arnold with some kind of a decent lighting. Right, so let's attempt to do that. So what I'm going to do first is, obviously, I'm going to download, and I don't need any animations. I just want the character. So I'm going to download the character, and T-pose is fine. And I'm just going to say download. All right, so here he is. This is what he comes in looking like. And if I go into my settings, you can see that I just have the default settings set up. My working units are linear centimeters, and I don't really have, I believe that's the default setting anyways. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this button here so I could see the joins. And in order for me to create this pose, there's a couple things I would like to do. First, I would like to obviously turn on the textures. And I do want the textures to be a little lighter, so I'm going to pump up my ambient color here. And we will have to convert these to AI surface in a minute. But maybe before we do that, let's go ahead and pose them. And let's check our bump map also. The bump map is set to color space sRGB. I'm going to change mine to utility raw. And you can see how that changes the normal map to look better in Maya. All right, and I feel like this is just a little bit too bright. All right, so next I would like to start posing this character in this pose. So how do I do that? It's going to be kind of difficult attempting to move the joints as they currently are. So what we need to do is let's activate our controls for this rig. So to do that, we have to select, let's go ahead and select the rig, go to Human IK, which is this button here. And we need to set up definitions for our character in order to get the controllers. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to double click on his pelvis and click on his pelvis here. And you can see that turned green. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say open. And then this thing comes up with the template HIK. And I'm just going to say match all bones with prefix. And I'm just say OK. So automatically Maya linked all the definitions and set up the joints for us using the Human IK, which means now we can go to the source and switch to control rig. And once we do, you can see that now you have these controllers that will drive the character. Very nice. So I'm not sure that we need the yellow looking ones, which is, there's the IK and there's the FK. So initially, let's just turn that off just for the sake of presentation so we could see it a little better. And let's just quickly start posing this character into this pose, right? So I'm going to try to do this quickly, so it's probably not going to be the best it could possibly be, but just common sense. So the first thing is, let's just kind of go from maybe bottom up, right? So I'm looking at his legs. His pelvis is still facing forward, and his left leg is sort of bent and the foot is kind of pointing to the right a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to mimic the left leg. So I'm going to take this, do something like this, and let's go ahead and looks like the knee is kind of pointing out. So I'm going to take his knee, position it a little bit this way, because he's trying to keep all of his balance on this bottom leg, right? So something like that. Let's go ahead and bring this leg all the way up. So something like that. And then the foot is kind of going inside. So I'm gonna maybe rotate it. And the knees really seems to be much further out. So something like that. That looks pretty cool. All right, let's keep moving up. The chest is, he's turned a little bit, so it looks like the stomach is facing the camera, but this whole top part is kind of pivoting to his left, right? So maybe I can grab this controller here and move him a little bit like this. Let's grab his head and make sure he's still pointing, maybe looking down a little bit, something like that. I'm gonna work on this arm, grab this arm, move it forward. And as you can see, he has a fist. So I'm gonna grab all of these controllers. I'm gonna grab just the fingers and just see if I can make a fist. All right, so the rotation is not working well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to use the move tool and really just make a good looking fist for my character. So maybe something like that. Let's see what that looks like once we rotate it. So now what I'm gonna do is, let's take this arm and see if we can rotate it this way. And that's breaking it. So I'm gonna do that with the wrist. So I'm gonna do a little bit of the arm and a little bit of the wrist and see if I can get away with making it look like it's not broken. Maybe move it up a little. And I definitely want to bend this, right? So I'm gonna grab my move tool and just start bending it. I'm gonna take this, and it's starting to look like it's breaking there. So make sure that looks nice. Maybe bring this in a little bit. And I do like how you can see the elbow here. So for that, I could move this in. If you start selecting the mesh instead of the controllers, you can always check this button off, which is select mesh, and now that's not gonna be a problem. So I'm gonna bend it just like his. And I think that looks pretty good. Another thing you could do, if it's helpful, you can of course turn on the FK and then also try to rotate these joints too, in addition to the controllers. So I try to usually use one as much as possible before I realize there's just no way I can, I need to use the other one. So just for the case, just for the purpose of simplicity, but these are here as well, so keep that in mind. You can use them to rotate it. All right, so next I'm gonna work on this arm here, which looks like it's just kind of up. And definitely bend, right? So I'm gonna go, let's bend it. Let's do the same thing. Looks like he has a fist. And I do want this to be in object mode so I can use my blue axes. I'm gonna grab this thumb here, do the same thing, just kind of put it in position. Now, if I wanted to grab these fingers here, of course I could do this. You know, I can hold down Shift and just grab them all like this. Or if sometimes it's hard to see and you really want to be more precise, you could use this here. Just figure out what hand it's using. So in this case, it's this one. So I can just click on these dots here, hold down the Control key, and do the same exact selection as kind of the manual camera selection. Maybe make the fist a little tighter. And now it's just a matter of taking the time and making it look nice. Alright, so his fist is kind of pointing down, so I'm gonna see if I can point it down, maybe hide that thumb situation. We don't really care about that. And this looks kind of crazy here, so let's see if we can make that look a little nicer. Now you can see that I don't really have any shoulder controls whatsoever. So for that, I'm going to turn this on. And I really do want to grab that shoulder there. This guy here. And I do want to move this up. And now the reason the entire body is following instead of just the arm, right, is because this button is on, which is full body control. If I turn it to body parts, you will see that now it's just controlling the body, the arm only, and the body is not following. All right, cool. So let's turn this off now and take a look. I think it looks pretty nice. It does look a little weird up here. For some reason, the bending is really deforming the arm a lot. And maybe we can make it just a little bit better. All right, so something like this, I think, is pretty nice. I would like to actually maybe make it a little more dramatic by maybe moving his head down a little. And I'm gonna move the fist up. Yeah, so again, you can spend more time. It does look like he's kind of leaning to the right. Whereas if you look here, the balance of his foot and his head is exactly on top of each other, right? My head is all the way to the right of the foot. So let's go ahead and shift his weight. And now when I'm shifting the weight, you can see now my body's not following. So I do want to turn this back on. And now if I shift the weight, it's not doing much, but that's because you could see there's pins in the leg, right? The leg is pinned. And I'm fine with that. If you didn't want that, you can unpin it, or you can click this button, release all pinning. I do like the pinning, so I'm just gonna move his body to the left and then just manually grab the foot and kind of position it where I want it to be. It's a little bit over the other leg, so something like that. And just for a little more dramatic effect, I'm gonna move the knee. So let's say I'm happy with this and I really like this angle. And let's say I don't want to lose my angle of the camera, and I didn't set up a camera, so I'm using the default camera. So how can I save this angle and maybe, still look at him from other angles? So I could use bookmarks. I'm going to click on this bookmark here. If I click on it once, it seems like nothing happened, but if you right click, you could see camera view 1 was bookmarked, which means now if you look at the character from other angles, which look equally as sweet. If you have a really strong pose, your pose is going to look really good from 360. So this, I'm liking this. This looks pretty cool. Just the thumb needs to be fixed, but that looks pretty cool. And if you want to get back into that other view, just right click and select your bookmark, and you can see that it brings you back to that view, right? All right, so how do we render this really quick in Arnold? We no longer need this. So I'm just gonna move it out of the way. And to render this in Arnold, if we do it right now as is, you will see that it's not going to work, obviously. There's no lighting, there's no materials. But let's just see what that looks like. Well, it's just a black screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Arnold, Light, and do a Sky Dome light. As soon as that is in, I can turn these lights on, right? And now my character is lit with the Sky Dome lights, but the materials are still set to foam, right? So for our render, we do need to change this to AI standards, but let's just see anyways, just for fun. I can also turn this on so I can see what the current screen size is set to. Maybe we can adjust that to be more maybe square. So let's go to our display size, and instead of 540, I'm just going to do 1K just so it's nice and square. I'm going to zoom in and set another bookmark, so I like how this is framed. Or maybe I don't. Let's see if we can adjust it a little. It's a little more dynamic. I could really see that thumb. It's bothering me. I'm going to move it. Let's try to hide it. Yeah, something like that is better. So I'm really happy with this. I'm going to bookmark it again. Now, if I right click, I could see I did three bookmarks. And at this point, I just want the 3. I don't really want 1 and 2. So of course, you can go to edit and just simply delete the old ones. Just like that. And now if you right click, it's just going to be one of them. So that's a cool feature as well. So right now it's on 1K. I'm gonna leave these the same, and let's just see what that gives us. All right, so you can see now we can see the lighting is better. It's not all black, but the materials are clearly wrong, right? He doesn't look right. So let's go ahead and go to his materials, and let's just adjust them from foam to AI standard. But I do want to grab, I'm going to do Control C. I'm going to copy this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to AI standard surface. And now I'm going to go to color, file, and just do Control V to paste that PNG link. All right, now if we click here, and let's just make sure that under geometry, it kept our raw color space setting, which it did. All right, let's just try to simply render this and see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks much better. I think that looks pretty cool. Now, of course, you can set up additional lighting and even pump up the quality, but in my case, I just wanted to show you real quick what the process is, and I think it's pretty cool. All right, just for the sake of exercise, let's just maybe bring in another light. Maybe let's drop an area light, kind of scale this up a little bit. And maybe I want to give them like a rim light in the back. Maybe there's like a bright sun behind the character. So just like a real photo shoot studio, I'm just going to set the light up kind of large. Like think of this as like real model, like a real life environment. So this is going to be your umbrella, and maybe you want the umbrella to be round, and they should be kind of large. Now in this case, I don't really know how much this lighting is affecting the character, so you could go to the light editor, click on your sky dome and turn it off, so you can see, well, how much the new light is affecting the character. Because in this case, I just want kind of the rim light, and obviously intensity of 1 in my scale unit is not doing anything, so I need to increase this dramatically. So let's do something crazy. Let's go to like 8, and let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, and if you wanted to, you can pump the exposure up. We can also play with the position of the light. And now we can also turn on the sky dome so we can see what that actually looks like. And of course, we can also turn the lights off so we can just look at the character. We can also turn off the controllers, and we can also turn off the joints. And let's turn off the grid. And now I see this little green thing down there. I want to turn off the locators. I just really want to just focus on the character. If you wanted to, you can also turn off your heads-up display, but in my case, I'm not going to do that. I'm just pretty happy with this lighting. We can do a quick render and see what that looks like. So obviously it's a little too bright. If you wanted the background to be transparent, go to your sky dome light and turn the camera off. So now you can see, if you leave it on, it's going to be, you can control the color, right? That this is black and this is white. But keep in mind, black is actually transparent. So if you save this out as a PNG in Photoshop, all of this is going to be transparent. So that's important. But for the case of preview, I'm just previewing, just trying to preview my image. Maybe I can make it gray, like a dark gray. And I definitely think my light, let's see, exposure is way too much. I do like that rim light, like the sun, kind of, but it's a little too crazy. Trying to find something that... Alright, and then as you rotate it in your viewport, you could see that it's trying to render it in real time, as long as you're using the Arnold render view. And my computer is not super fast, so it does take a few seconds to catch up. But if you guys have a fast computer, it would be pretty much in real time. So find your cool pose, and then you can do a full render, like a complete render, and you can see the complete time right here. All right, so that's how fun this is, and I hope you take advantage of this and play around. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Quick little mini bonus section for those of you who stayed behind. I just brought in my own Sunset HDRI light, and you can see how the character looks different because the shadows kick in and it just looks better than the white standard lights. There's many different resources with free HDRI lights. So do that. Again, you can plug them in right in here. This is what mine looks like. It's just this, I think I got it on Google somewhere. I think HDRI Haven, I think. I'm not really sure. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is before you exit, before you actually close this off, one thing you should probably do is select all of your controllers, and you want to, let's make sure we're looking at the timeline that makes sense here. I'm just going to do 24 and 24. So make sure that you press S while you're selecting all of these animation controllers. Press S so that a red line shows up, which means when you save this and exit out and come back the next day, he will, all the pose is going to be keyed in, so it's not going to like lose its position. There's a good chance if you do leave and you don't set the keys, he might go back to the T-pose, which is if I go to frame 2 and press S, and let's say I want to get him back in the T-pose, I could press this button here. You can see how that works. You can also jump out of the control rig and go back to the stands. That does the same thing. But the cool thing about this is if you go back to 1 and switch to the control rig, you could see that the keys kick in, right? So because we set the keys here, he goes back to his pose. So that's really important, so keep that in mind. And again, if you want to do another pose, I usually just go in this mode and then do this and then press S, and then this time it's going to key in the T-pose, right? So now you're going to have this and this. So pressing S is really important to set your keys. All right, so and then again, if you after you render this out, make sure you can just save it as a PNG. All right, thanks for watching.